of course, that I have asked you to get together here this afternoon is because of the union election, which is scheduled for this Thursday. Now, on January 25th, 1968, we had our last union election at Darlington. That was the 7th in the history of this plant. And on January 25th, 1968, it was this same steelworkers union that was trying to get into our plant. And at that time, you people turned down the steelworkers union by nearly a 2.5 to 1 margin. The vote was 420 for no union and 173 votes for the union. A previous election on August 19, 1966 also involved the steelworkers union as well as the pulp, sulfite, and paper mill workers. At that time, you rejected both these unions combined by more than a 2 to 1 majority. The vote was 368 for no union and 173 votes for both unions combined. Now, in spite of these repeated defeats, and in spite of the fact that you have repeatedly told these unions that you don't want anything of what they're selling, the steelworkers union organizers are back with us, and as you know, the election is scheduled for May 17th. Now, maybe one reason that the steelworkers are back to try to organize this plant is the fact that we have about 200 employees now at this plant who were not here at the last union election 5 years ago. And you good people have not had an opportunity to find out in detail some of our experiences with unions within our company. You have not had an opportunity to find out in detail why we feel that a union is not in your best interest at Darlington. Now, for your benefit, as well as to refresh the memories of some of the older employees, I want to fully inform you on this subject. Now, this is a serious matter. It's particularly serious to you and the ones that are centered on you for a living. It's also serious to me and all our supervisors and everybody else connected with the Darlington plant. In fact, it's so serious, and that's why I've asked that the plant be shut down, and that you folks assemble here for a few minutes so that I can be certain that you fully understand the matter before you cast your vote on Thursday. Now, you might ask, just why is the union so interested in you? The answer is simple. They want some of your money. They want 2 hours pay from 634 employees in the Darlington plant. We estimate that this would amount to around $48,000 per year, based on our present employment and our present wage rate. And make no mistake about it, they want this 2 hours pay from everyone. Now, unions prey on the individual's dissatisfaction. They try to be all things to all people. Since they have been hanging around here, they've tried to make you believe that they'll make the company change any and everything you don't like. Now, I know this plant isn't perfect, and I know that you can't 100% please everybody all of the time. But we have certainly tried real hard to be just as fair as possible in our dealings with every one of you. And I want to assure you that we fully intend to continue this policy. Unions are full of promises, but as you must realize, unless they can get the company to agree, they can't produce a one. And if the company doesn't agree, their only recourse is to strike. Now, while we're on the subject of strikes, let me repeat some of our company's experiences that have been mentioned in letters to your home. During 1952, the union at the Dixie Cup plant in Fort Smith, Arkansas, struck that plant for 73 days. These employees returned to work for exactly what they had been offered before they went out on strike. Dixie Cup used to have a plant in Chicago. At one time, that plant employed about 700 people. Labor difficulties with Angelo and Sizo's union destroyed the profitability of that plant. Now, I'm not saying that this would happen at Darlington, but the Chicago Dixie Cup plant has been closed down and the building has been sold. The Dixie Cup plant in eastern Pennsylvania has been struck several times. The most recent strike involved both the Dixie Cup plant in Easton and the plastics plant at nearby Forks Township. This strike took place in 1967 and lasted 111 days. That was nearly 16 weeks that all of those people were out of work. Some of the things that happened in Easton are regrettable. However, since things like this can and indeed did happen, I think you should know about it. The Easton employees lost nearly 16 weeks' pay. There were no strike benefits, only picket duty pay for those performing picket duty. And in the newspaper accounts, it was reported that there were numerous acts of violence, such as a firebomb was tossed into the warehouse up there. Cross tires were stacked up on the railroad siding. Cement was poured into the railroad switches. A picketer laid down on the railroad track on the blind side of the engineer, and if a policeman hadn't removed him, he could have been killed. Also, it was reported that a lot of people wanted to return to work, but they were repeatedly denied the opportunity to even vote on the question of returning to work. In mid-November, the company started shipping out finished goods from the Easton and Forks warehouse. Some machinery and tooling was moved out of the Forks plant. Mr. Klassen, who at that time was president of American Can Company, went over to Easton and spoke to some of the community leaders. He made a statement that the firm would begin phasing out its Easton and Forks Township plant operations after January 1st if the paper makers do not accept the company's final offer before the end of December. Now, I have here a copy of the Eastern Express. Now, this issue of the Eastern Express carries the account of Mr. Klassen's visit over to Easton. And I want to quote you some of the things that Mr. Klassen said that are quoted in this newspaper article. He said this: "Gentlemen, when we say that we are concerned for our employees, we mean it sincerely. We know that the great majority of them are good citizens, conscientious workers, and sincerely interested in their jobs. We deplore violence, and we know that most of them share that view. Within recent days, we found it necessary, because of customer requirements and competitive pressure, to move manufacturing equipment from the Forks Township plant to other company plants in the United States. If the strike is not settled soon, the company will have no need for these two facilities. Let me emphasize once more that the American Can Company has made its final offer to the union. This offer is not only eminently fair, it is the most generous ever made to this local. We know that the economic facts of doing business demand that we not exceed it unless we're willing to see our competitive position in the paper cup industry destroyed. I assure you, we are not willing to do that. It would result in three things: permanent loss of the company's customers, loss of jobs for our employees, and loss of payroll for Easton and the surrounding area." That ends the quote from the newspaper article. But now the folks at Easton and Forks returned to work for exactly what had been offered them voluntarily by the company before the strike started. The average employee lost over $1,500 in wages that can never be made up. In the case of a husband and wife both working at the plant, the loss to the family was more than $3,000. Now let's turn to our company's experience with strikes in can plants that have been organized by the Steelworkers Union. There have been a number of work stoppages at individual locations, as well as major strikes involving all can plants represented by the Steelworkers Union. Most recently, the major strikes involving all can plants covered by the Steelworkers contract were from December 1st, 1953 to January 12th, 1954. That one lasted 5 weeks. From March 1st, 1965 to March 21st, 1965. That one lasted 3 weeks. And then the last one was February 15th, 1971 to March 15th, 1971, and that one lasted 4 weeks. Also in Florida alone, there were a total of 22 wildcat strikes during a 10-year period. Now you may have heard claims about how well unions take care of their members while they're out on strike. Back in the 1968 union campaign, the steelworkers made the claim that they would pay your bills, such as house payments, car payments, or any other bills you may have, plus put food on your table. At that time, I went to the trouble of getting the facts on strike benefits provided by the Steelworkers Union during the 1965 can plant strike. Here's what I found out that they did for striking members at several of our company's plants. At the Brooklyn plant, there were no strike benefits paid by either the international or the local union. Picket pay, an amount of $1 per day for picket duty, was made available. Some extremely large families who were hardship cases received $10 per week from the local union. At Tampa plant, no strike benefits were paid by either the local or the international union. No pay was made for picket duty. As a matter of fact, the vice president of the local union had to get another job to support his family. The employees of Baltimore plant received no strike benefits from the international or the local union. No one received pay for picketing, but baskets of food were made available for needy families at the union's hall. In 2 instances, the local union paid part of the light bills for 2 needy families to keep their lights from being turned off. The employees of Maywood and Englewood plants received no strike benefits from the local or the international union. Moderate amounts of picket pay were made available by the local union. At Milwaukee plant, no strike or picket duty benefits were paid by either the international or the local union. In fact, employees who refused to picket were fined. Also, back in 1967-68, the Steelworkers Union had a major strike in the cotton industry. This strike lasted more than 6 months and involved 40,000 members. The union reported that strike benefits ran about $1 million per month during that period. Now, when you divide that $1 million per month among 40,000 members, it averages out to $5.78 per week for each striker. Now, just how many house payments, car payments do you think that'll make? And how much food do you think that'll put on your table? There was an article in the January 22nd issue of Newsweek magazine concerning this strike, and I want to quote a couple of things from it. It said that the city dump has long since been picked over for anything of value. Strikers are selling off boats, guns, camping gear, and other luxury items bought in better times. We're so hard up for dough, said one youth striker, that we're selling everything but our wives. Now, these are some of the things that happened in the copper strike. But now, where does money for this strike going to come from anyhow? It comes from dues paying members, of course. it is usually a part of the regular dues that are paid monthly. But quite often it's necessary for a union to build up or replenish the strike fund through assessments. Sometimes these assessments might run $25, $50, or maybe even $100. This usually comes about by each member having to make an extra payment of so many dollars for so many months. How would you like to help finance a strike in the steel mill, or in the copper industry, or in the can plants, for instance? Now, the union may have told you that they would improve your job security. But our sole business at Darlington is to manufacture paper cups and paper plates. And we don't manufacture them unless we have a customer who's willing to pay more for them than it costs us to make them. Therefore, the more customers we have, the more orders we have to fill, the more jobs we have at the Darlington plant. Our plant remains profitable, and our employees become more secure. In other words, what I'm saying is simply this. In the 35 years since this plant has been in operation, we have seen the Darlington plant grow. And it has grown only because it made a fair profit. And the company deemed it wise to invest more money into land, buildings, machinery, and jobs. Since profits make jobs, this is our only true security. While the Darlington plant has grown steadily, what has been happening to the job security of some of the people in can plants? We used to have a can plant in Savannah, Georgia. It was represented by the Steelworkers Union. It became an unprofitable operation, and it's been closed down. At one time, we had 3 can plants in Florida. Plants at Plymouth and Dade City have been closed down some time ago. The last remaining Florida can plant is at Tampa, and that plant is now in the process of being closed down. In fact, last August 9th, I mailed out a newsletter to all your homes. This newsletter contained a quoted letter from Mr. William F. May, Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of American Can Company. In this letter, Mr. May announced plans to close 9 can plants. Employees in most of these plants are represented by the Steelworkers Union. Yet about 4,800 employees will be out of work. A similar thing is taking place in Continental Can Company. They are closing down several plants. Employees of some of these plants, too, are Steelworker Union members. A lot of Continental Can Company employees will also be out of work. Aren't you good people at Darlington a lot better off than these unfortunate people? The Steelworkers Union could not provide job security for those people. All those plants are being closed down because it is no longer economical to operate them. Now this leads me into another subject. I've tried to cover this in letters to your homes too, but it's so important I think I should review it with you. The Steelworker Union organizers have been telling you that if you vote them in here at Darlington, they will get you some of the same wages and benefits that exist in can plants. Now, the American Can Company is a big company, and it's involved in a number of different kinds of business. In each of these different types of business, it must compete with the other companies that are in that same type business. Now, Dixie Cup, of course, we've already said, we're in the paper cup and paper plate business. Our competition is with people that also manufacture paper cups and paper plates. People like Lily Jewell, Solo, Sweetheart, London, and many more. On paper cups, we're also competing with the people that make plastic cups and containers. A good example of what I'm talking about here involves our plate operation. Some time ago, people in the plate plant became pretty upset about a number of changes that had been and were taking place in our plate operation. Now, I'm not being critical of these people. It's just natural for anyone to be concerned about their job when a number of changes are being made to it, especially when you don't understand the reason for those changes. Well, we shut the plate plant down and talked to these people, explaining to them on all three shifts the reason behind these changes. The situation is this. We are facing some extremely tough price competition, particularly in white plates. Most of our competition is double pressing plates. Several of them are triple pressing, and we know of at least one that is quad pressing or blanking out 4 plates at one time. And some of our competitors do not provide the excellent wages and benefits that our people enjoy either. For example, Gulf States Paper Corporation makes paper plates in Maplesville, Alabama. Gulf States at Maplesville, Alabama has a union. Their people get a maximum of 4 weeks vacation, and you get 5. Their people get 8 paid holidays, with the 9th holiday being added effective December 26th this year. As you know, you good people get 10 paid holidays. Their sick and accident benefits run from $25 a week to a maximum of $35 a week. Your sick benefits run from $65 per week to $80 per week, more than double theirs. Also, their sick benefits run for a maximum of 13 weeks, and yours run for a maximum of 26 weeks. Their hospitalization insurance provides for a maximum of $30 per day, room and board. Yours provides for the full cost of semi-private accommodation. Their plan provides for maximum surgical benefits of $300. Your plan has maximum surgical benefits of $420. At Gulf States, the company only pays the premium for the employee's insurance coverage. The Gulf States employee must pay $13.87 per month for insurance coverage for one dependent. And he must pay $21.44 a month for 2 or more dependents. At Darlington, you not only have much better benefits, but the company pays the total cost for insurance coverage for you and your dependents. Just to give you an idea of the excellent insurance benefits we have an employee whose wife recently went to the hospital for major surgery. The total cost of this hospital confinement, including the surgery, was $3,306.55. His insurance benefits covered $3,155.55. In other words, he only had to pay $151 out of a hospital bill of over $3,300. Another good example is one of our employees who had to be hospitalized recently. His total hospital bill amounted to $1,916.31, and his doctor's bill was $225. His insurance paid every cent of the hospital bill, and it paid $140 on the doctor's bill. Out of a total cost of $2,141.31, he only had to pay $85. And I might remind you that neither one of them had to pay 5 cents of his own money for this insurance coverage. Now, to continue with this comparison with Gulf States, their pension benefits are $3.45 per month per year of service. Yours are $5 per month per year of service. At Gulf States, they have what they call a maintenance leader. This man is their top maintenance man. He does electrical as well as millwright work, and has one man they call a general maintenance man working under him. The maintenance leader makes top pay of $3.58 per hour, and the general maintenance man makes top pay of $3.28 per hour. Our plate setup mechanic operators make top pay of $3.81 an hour. Now that's 23 cents an hour more than the maintenance leader, and 53 cents an hour more than the general maintenance man. At Gulf gulf states, a plate packer starts at $2.26 and can get up to a maximum of $2.36. At Darlington, a plate packer starts at $2.75 and can get up to $2.94. That's 58 cents per hour more than Gulf states. A truck operator at Gulf states can make up to $2.41 an hour. At Darlington, a truck operator can make up to $3.31 an hour. That's 90 cents an hour more at Darlington than at Gulf states. This gives you a good idea of where we stack up against competition. And this highlights why we must continue to improve our cause if we expect to stay in the plate business. And we fully intend to stay in the plate business. And we intend to grow, to continue to grow in the plate business. I mentioned to those people over there, too, that we also make plates here at Darlington for Easton. Easton is by far the biggest customer that the Darlington plant has. But now last year, they tried real hard to get set up to make their own white plates. And if we hadn't done some of the things that we had already done to improve our cause, things like double pressing and automating some of the white plate production, we very well could have lost a substantial part of our plate volume to Easton. And along with this plate volume that we'd have lost, we would have lost jobs here at Darlington. Now, in my judgment, it's very important that we stay in the white plate business. The white plate is a real volume item. Now, when we get and retain a good account on white plates, it's much easier to get his business on printed plates. And when we get his business on printed plates, it's much easier to get his business for matching cup items. And so it goes on and on. The point is that the white plate business is the real key, not only to our total plate business, but to our cup business as well. So this is the best way of explaining this thing of changes. What we are really doing is trying to protect and expand the opportunity for more jobs at Darlington, more jobs in the plate plant, and more jobs in the cup plant. We also have some mighty tough competition in the cup end of the business. Lily Tulip has a large plant near us and in Augusta, Georgia. Lily employees at Augusta have a union. It's a teamsters. Yet here's a comparison of some of your wages and benefits with those at Lily Augusta. Lily employees get 9 paid holidays, you get 10. Lily employees get a maximum of 4 weeks vacation, you get a maximum of 5 weeks. A cup machine operator makes $2.85 per hour at Lily. At Darlington, it's $2.88 plus bonus. A packer at Darlington makes top pay 19 cents per hour more than at Lily Augusta. A re-inspector at Darlington makes top pay 25 cents an hour more than at Augusta. At Augusta, a utility man, such as a floor man, roll man, materials handler, etc., makes top pay of $2.75 an hour. At Darlington, he starts at $2.75 an hour and goes up to $3.01. That's 26 cents an hour more than at Lily. A seal operator makes 24 cents an hour more at Darlington than at Lily too. Baler operators make 39 cents an hour more at Darlington than at Lily. Fork truck drivers make 6 cents an hour more at Darlington than in Augusta. And let's remember, they pay in union dues. You own it. Another good comparison is with Perfection Gear. And Perfection Gear isn't in the metal can business either. Employees at Perfection Gear have been represented by the Steelworkers Union for over 5 years. Yet you'll notice that they don't pay the same wages and benefits that are in the pattern of the can plants. Let's compare some of the things Perfection Gear employees with the Steelworkers Union have with what you have without a union. They get 9 paid holidays, you get 10. A Perfection Gear employee pays about 30% of medical insurance costs, and at Dixie, the company pays the entire cost. Perfection Gear employees have a $300 surgical schedule. You have a $420 schedule. Sick and accident benefits at Perfection Gear are $50 a week. As you know, hours are $65 to $80 per week, depending on earnings. Now let me comment on that leaflet that Steelworkers passed out to you last week. In this leaflet, they tried to make you believe that all Perfection Gear employees get all kinds of fat paychecks, including some mighty big bonus earnings. What they did was pick out a few isolated instances involving some unusual situations. First, most of the check stubs they showed you were for people in their higher classifications. Jobs similar to our jobs in the machine shop. They showed you a check stub for a lab technician. Now that's their second highest rated hourly job. He makes $4.05 an hour. We have a lot of people here at this plant making a good bit more than that. They showed you a check stub for a setup loader who for that week had some sort of an adjustment of $28.96 and some mighty high bonus earnings. His total pay for that week was nearly $290. He doesn't make any $290 every week. In fact, for the year to date, he averaged $210.72. Now that's nearly $80 a week less than the week they showed you. They showed you a check stub for another setup loader. This check stub was for $305. Yet this man has averaged $209.40 per week. Now that's nearly $100 a week less than the week they showed you. From what I understand about their bonus system, they have a group incentive plan. On long runs, they can make some pretty good bonus. But on short runs, they make very little. It should average out about 15% for machine operators and about 8% for some indirect people. Not all of the people are on the bonus plan. Now this is a far cry from the bonus earnings that they showed you. In fact, I've had several people who have relatives or friends working out at Perfection tell me that these relatives and friends of theirs certainly don't make any average bonus earnings like these that were shown. In fact, if all Perfection Gear employees had weekly paychecks and bonus earnings every week, like the union organizers would like you to believe, there should be a line several miles long in front of their employment office every day. What the organizers obviously have done is to try to mislead you. Another attempt to mislead you was made today with this pass out concerning the Greensboro plant. Now, they've got some things in here. They show some check stubs for people. Here's one for Francis Thompson, who is a machine cleaner. For this week, they show you the gross earnings of $211.67. Now, she has averaged $103.80. That's not half what the week they showed you. Another one is Connie Gary, who's a palletizer operator. The week they showed you, she made $221.75. Yet for the year, she's been averaging $154.54. Now that's about $70 a week less than the week they showed you. This Jeannie Faye Turner, who is a retester, showed you a check stub for her where she made $175.90. But she's been averaging making $80.84. That's not half what the check is that they showed you. Mary Benton, who's a machine cleaner. This check stub they show is earnings are over $214. Yet she's been averaging $94.90. So again, that's not half of the earnings that they showed you. Now, if they try to mislead you on these things, don't you suppose they try to mislead you on a lot of other things? So now we're coming down close to the end of the wire on this thing, though. So you vote on Thursday. Mr. Pegg has been promising you that he'll get you all kinds of good things for you if you vote this steelworkers union in this plan. But let me remind you that no union can get anything that a company is not able to give. You've got a good thing going for you right here in Dawson. Your wages and benefits have kept pace with Easton and Fort Smith. Your wages and benefits are among the best in the Darlington area. Your wages and benefits are better than those of your friends at Perfection Gear, where this same Steelworkers Union has represented them for over 5 years. Those good people might still be waiting on the Steelworkers Union to deliver some of the things that they promised them 5 years ago. And you've got all of this without having to pay 5 cents in union dues, fines, assessments, or membership fees or anything like that. Dixie employees at Fort Smith have been paying union dues for 25 years. At Easton, they've been paying union dues for 35 or 40 years. And your wages and benefits have been increased regularly in line with theirs. During the last 8-year period, 1964 through 1972, wages and benefits increased an average of 24.5 cents per hour each year at Easton, and 23 cents per hour each year at Fort Smith. During this same 8-year period, your wages and benefits increased an average of 23.4 cents per hour each year. So let me repeat those figures. Easton, 24.5 cents per hour each year. Fort Smith, 23 cents per hour each year. Darlington, 23.4 cents per hour each year. Now this certainly bears out my statement that you have received similar treatment. Also, you have not lost any time due to a work stoppage here at Darlington. I've told you before that no union can force any company to give anything that's not able to give. The only recourse when they make an unreasonable demand, which a company is not able to give, is to pull you out on strike. At Easton, they had a strike back in 1967 that lasted 111 days. At Fort Smith, they had a strike that lasted 73 days. In both these cases, they came back to work for exactly what they had been offered before the strike started. Also, I've told you about the strikes in the can plants. 9 can plants belonging to American Can and several belonging to Continental Can are being closed. Most employees of these plants are represented by the Steelworkers Union. Dixie Cup had a plant in Chicago that had to be closed down. Let's just not risk any of this here at Darlington. Now, I know that a number of you have signed union cards to get a friend off your back. You've had a lot of pressure on you from your friends and neighbors. Many of you have signed cards thinking that the union would do all kinds of wonderful things for you. Many of you may have signed union cards before you knew all of the facts. Now, it doesn't matter how many union cards you may have signed. When you vote on Thursday, you are free to vote as you please. When you go into that voting booth on Thursday, I want you to pause and think. Think about by the facts that I have presented you, think about the excellent things that you have here at Darlington without having to pay any union dues and losing any time due to strikes. Now, on June 26th, I will complete 35 years service at Darlington Plant. More than 21 years of this has been as your plant manager. Now, I'm proud of our plant, and I'm proud of our people. It's been a pleasure to be a part of this plant. Over the years, we've seen this plant grow. It's grown from a small beginning to its present size. We have grown because we've worked together. I certainly hope that in the 9 years that I have remaining before retirement, that I'll be able to see some further growth here at Darlington. We still have over 10 acres of open land over at the plate plant. A few years ago, we bought 5 acres of land over here on 3rd Street. And I can assure you that this land was not bought for raising cotton. Several people have asked me this question. Why do you fight so hard to keep a union out of this plant? The answer is that I am convinced that you don't need a union in this plant. I don't see where it could help you. I do see where it could hurt you. Now, if you agree with me that we are better off without any union at Darlington, all you have to do is put an X in the box marked no on your secret ballot on Thursday. Don't make any other marks on the ballot. Don't sign it. If you mess up your ballot, ask the board agent, and he'll be glad to give you another. I realize that we've been here for a little while, and I want to apologize for keeping you so long. But I did want to make sure that you fully understand all of the factors concerned on this important matter before you vote on Thursday. I'd like to thank you now for your kind attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for inviting me to share with you in this great election. I'm here because I believe in democracy. I'm here because I believe what the Constitution says, that there are no special people that are ordained to run this country. I read in the Constitution that all men and women are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. And amongst these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, that third one is the reason we are here. We are here because the Constitution didn't guarantee us happiness. It guaranteed us the right to pursue it. Now, if you are going to be happy, you got to get together and get organized and start pursuing your happiness. Because you have never seen anybody get happy unless they get organized. Now, democracy works for management. Can you imagine running a plant without a board of directors? Can you imagine running any kind of business without some board of directors that's elected by the stockholders to make decisions? It would be almost impossible to run a plant like that. And yet people try to run a plant without giving the workers the same right to organize. And the truth of it is, it doesn't work. It doesn't work, but the reason we all have not yet realized that it doesn't work is that some workers somewhere got organized, and as the previous speaker said, we are living by the blessings that have been attained for us by other organized workers. This country would not be together today had it not been for organized labor in the 30s that pulled workers together and made management face up to certain realities and put in a president like Franklin Roosevelt who listened to organized labor and who gave those workers a chance to speak through their government when they couldn't speak to their bosses. And so because of the organization of workers in the 30s and 40s, we got rid of things like child labor. We got a 40-hour week, and those of you who are old enough to remember, and even though I might look kind of young, I can remember back then, they said it would be the end of the free enterprise system. The world was going to the dogs. We could never make any profits on working 40 hours a week. And yet not only have we done it, we have seen this nation grow into the greatest productive force of workers in the history of the world. There's no group of workers anywhere in the world that can produce like American workers can. Now, you're supposed to clap on that because I'm talking about you. Now, when workers begin to get organized and begin to pursue their happiness together, there's no reason why work should be a curse. I enjoy my work. I maybe work 70 hours a week, but it doesn't bother me because I love it, because I have something to say about it, and because if I don't like it, a group of us can get together in the Congress and change it. And we work because we want to work and because we love our work. And even when I have my day off, this is supposed to be my day off. My wife says, haven't you been speaking enough around Atlanta? Why you got to go way up to some little place I've never heard of? I said, well, because there's some good work going on. There's some good people going on. There's some people there that have decided that they know as much about how to run the factory as the bosses do. And they are going to get organized. They are going to get organized, and they are going to make life a little better for themselves and for their children and for their children's children. And you know, that's all that we're about in the Congress. That's all that I'm about as a preacher. That's all that I was about when I was working with Martin Luther King in the Civil Rights Movement. And it was in that movement that I first learned the power of workers coming together. And the strange thing was, it was back in the early 60s when blacks and whites were supposed to be fighting each other, when they were trying to keep all of us poor folk divided on the basis of some being black and some being white. And it was some white workers that came into our office one day and said, we are trying to get recognized as a union. And we have not been able to get the mayor of the city to listen to us, and we wonder if you would help us. And I went out to a labor union hall to a meeting just like this on a Sunday night. And I sat down there and I talked with those workers, and I realized that the problems people face have very little to do with the color of their skin. I realized that whether the worker's skin color is black or white, whether his hair is straight or kinky, when he comes home to some children who want to know how much bread and meat do we have on the table. He comes home to a wife who wants to know whether or not she's going to be able to buy some new shoes, because if you got children and you know how fast their feet grow, seems like their feet grow faster than anything else, and it seems like shoes are more expensive than anything else, and whether or not our children are going to have shoes on their feet doesn't make any difference whether their little feet are black or their little feet are white. And you know, we got together, and Martin Luther King went down with a group of workers that were about 800 white workers and 15 black workers, and went into the mayor's office and preached to the mayor, who was a good friend of his, and said, "Now, Mr. Mayor, we believe in democracy in Atlanta. We believe that we are a city too busy to hate. We believe that we are going to have to work together and live together, and we just think that these workers and the city need to get together." And they signed their first contract together, and they reached an agreement. And when people talk about the city of Atlanta moving forward, when they talk about the progress of the city, when they say we're a city too busy to hate, I always remind them we're a city too busy to hate because we came together and started facing our common problems. And the truth of it is we're too busy to hate because we've been so busy making money. And when people are making money and they're able to educate their children, when they're able to take care of their relatives when they go to the doctor, when they're able to get into a hospital without having to pay in advance and be insulted and pushed around, when they know that their health is guaranteed by agreements negotiated by their workers working together in a union, when they have that kind of peace of mind, then they know that they can be happy. Now, your election day happens to be a day that's close to my heart, because I think it's a day that saved America. I don't know whether you've ever stopped to think about it, but we had 200 years of feuding and fussing and fighting between blacks and whites in the South. And through those 200 years, had they been allowed to continue like that, instead of sitting together in a room like this, we might have been separated like the people of Ireland are. The Protestants bombing the Catholics shooting at the Protestants, and nobody able to get along. Now, nobody profits in that kind of atmosphere. And I think the day that turned the South around was August the 28th, 1963. That was the date of the March on Washington. And that was when black people and white people, with the support of organized labor, gathered in Washington, D.C. and said, look, we are not going to be a nation that's half free and half slave on the basis of race. And Martin Luther King made that famous speech saying, I have a dream that someday men will be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And black people said together, we are not going to be angry and hate people for what happened in the past. We are going to work together, black and white together, to bring us a new future. Now, I say that I came here to see you today because I still have that dream. I still have that dream that just as this nation should not be divided on the basis of black and white, it should not be divided on the basis of rich and poor. And let me give you a specific illustration of what I'm talking about. I have a little card here. This card was given me when I went to the Congress of the United States. The medical officers in the Congress brought me in and gave me a 2-hour physical examination. And everything that's wrong with me is on this little card. That's my electrocardiogram. They got how much sugar I got in my blood, what my blood type is. So if I get sick anywhere, any doctor has my whole medical record right here in my pocket. Well, I want to say if that's good enough for congressmen, it's good enough for workers. There's no reason why every American citizen shouldn't have the advantage of this kind of preventive medicine. And the only reason we don't have it now is we have not been organized enough. And so we're not just talking about a few cents on an hour. We're talking about issues of life and death. Because whether or not the doctor has immediate, you can go around here and have a diabetes attack and have some kind of sugar blackout, and the police pick you up and think you're drunk and put you in jail, and you die before they realize what's wrong with you. You can be suffering with high blood, and they fool around and think that you're on drugs because your eyes look kind of glazed and ignore you. We are talking about the issues that mean the difference between life and death and health and happiness on August 28th. And so I say to you in closing that it's not enough for every one of us here to go out and vote for the Union and then sit back and wait on the count. You see, in my district where I come from, we like to know where our votes are before the election. And I think there are 3,500 workers, and we may have somewhere between 500 and 1,000 here and around the building. Now, that means that if we, I don't like close elections. We don't want to have any recount. Because you know already they're going to challenge the election when you win. But you have to win by such a big number that they realize, look, these folk have gotten together. We better make peace and sit down at the table with them like brothers and sisters ought to sit. And to do that, everyone amongst you would need to be responsible for at least 5 more, but preferably 10. Now, the only way I got to Congress is we had 70 neighborhoods organized, and every block had a captain. And that captain saw to it that everybody on that block was organized. Now, that means that when you gossiping the rest of the week, don't go home and just say, oh, we had a good meeting and some good barbecue down at the school. Some of you know Gladys Knight and the Pips. And Gladys Knight said, I heard it on the grapevine. And what I want you all to do is put it out on the grapevine between now and Wednesday that we are going to get together and get organized in this town. And when you get organized, the dreams that you have for the pursuit of happiness for you and your children will be yours. And you won't have to be chasing after happiness anymore. Your work will be happy. Because people will respect you. And just as they talked about a 40-hour week being the end of the world back in the 30s and early 40s, if we are going to deal with this inflation, we're going to have a 4-day week. We're going to have to talk in terms of 32, 36 hours a week at the same pay or more. We are going to have to create enough work in our existing system But you see, you can't have anything to say about that unless you're organized. And when you're organized, your life, your family, your whole work situation is going to be dedicated to the pursuit of your own happiness, and I will be happy for you and with you, and God bless you.
Do you now see why Atlanta is so proud in having Congressman Young to represent them? And Congressman Young, those inspiring remarks are going to inspire us to win that election by an overwhelming majority. And the reception you receive certainly indicates how much we appreciate your coming and giving us this lift. To take a bow, I want to introduce Congressman Young's assistant and member of staff, Fred Bennett. There are some delegates from Georgia came down with Congressman. Would you come up to the stage, wherever you are? Okay. Next. And to bring our rally to a close, I want to now introduce to you, although most of you know him because he's been the director of this organizing drive, he's been leading the fight to organize J.P. Stevens for the past 10 years, Harold McIver.
Thank you, Brother Swady. Congressmen, distinguished guests, visitors, it's getting hot in here. I'm going to cut my remarks short. I made 6 speeches in the plant last Friday, and I intend to make 6 more tomorrow after I get through with you. You know, I've been working on your company, not with them, but on them, for 11 years. And I told you I had friends in Georgia, North and South Carolina. J.P. Stevens workers, some of the best people I ever met in my life. And some of them are here today. You've heard a lot of talk about Statesboro, Georgia. Company says they crammed it down their throats. We got some people here from Statesboro, Georgia that flew up on the plane with Andy Young, who happened to be from my hometown in Atlanta, and I'm proud of it. So without further ado, I want to introduce Bill English to be the spokesman for the Statesboro, Georgia J.P. Stevens group, who are still working in the plant, and they're not afraid to come here and talk to you today. Come on up, Bill. Give him a hand.
I'm not much of a speaker, and I don't use a lot of big words. I'm not that well educated, but I don't know what the Stevens people around here has been saying about Statesboro, but down in Statesboro, we've got J.P. Stevens on the hook. It's true we don't have a contract, but we're still negotiating with J.P. Stevens, and we're still meeting with them. And any time that we call for a meeting, they have to meet with us. And I'd like to say a few words about, we collected, Harold and the union collected over $70,000 back pay for the employees at Statesboro, I think was in 70. And if there's anybody here that don't believe it, I have a photostatic copy of a check that I received for over $1,100. Now, I got this one little story I'd like to tell about, I think it was in early 70. I had just appeared at Statesboro at a hearing against J.P. Stevens. And when we got back to the plant, well, the supervisor said there'll be no more overtime for William English. He told that around in the plant. Well, I was upset. That Friday evening, I called Harold McGyver. I talked to Harold, and Harold said, I've got an organizer in Dublin. He'll be in Statesboro in the morning. The next morning, the man came, and we filed more charges against J.P. Stevens. They wound up paying me for the overtime that I had lost, and they have never discriminated against me or anybody else in that plant again. And I just wish I could vote up here when you have this election. I'd vote for the union, and I hope everybody will vote for the union.
We also have some of your brothers up here from Aberdeen, North Carolina, and they had a little experience down there last November. And at this time, I'd like for the Aberdeen people to stand up who drove up here this morning to be with you. And Jim Sinus, a weaver in the Aberdeen plant, is going to be the spokesman for this group. Now, I want you to understand they'll be out on the football field, and you can talk to them out there a little bit later on. Come on, Jim.
Good evening. It's sort of warm in here, and I'm going to cut my remarks short. My name's James Sinus, and I'm a worker at J.P. Stevens Gulistan Carpet Division. We make carpet, and there's been a lot of good remarks made about what the union will do for you, but there hadn't been very much said what would happen if you didn't vote for the union. I might remark on this. In our plant, when we were trying to organize last November, they installed showers and improved our break rooms and built one new break room in our plant. And they never did criticize our work, put their arms around us and told us what good workers we were and good Joes and all this, trying to trick us into voting against the union. And in our plant, they before the election, the four rumors were the plant might close, union dues, we had to pay union dues, and right now we pay more for our medical insurance than our union dues would have been, and they spread around in the plant about violence and trouble. And we went through the whole process and had none. And we also in our plant, before the election, they promised we'd have a great profit sharing increase. And they claimed when we got old, we would be looked after and have a great future in retirement. But after the election, it was a different story. Me personally, I lost $300 in profit sharing. Some of the employees as high as $800. The showers are not in use now. They're cut off. The break rooms, the food and stuff and refreshments has gone up from, our drinks used to be 10 cents. They went up to 15. Oh yes, on election day when they posted we'd lost, they give free drinks. I wouldn't even drink one myself. I didn't like it. Now, before the election, my boss man was a good Jew. I tell you the truth, I got to like him. But now he comes around, very seldom ever speaks, and he has a list of all the weavers in the weave room, showing how much production they made and so forth, quality of carpet. And I'll tell you, we're not making nothing. If nothing's good, nothing's right. They're on us all the time, and they think we're machines. I'd like to say this also. I'm kind of getting long here. I hope and pray that you won't make the mistake J.P. Stevens at Aberdeen made. Don't believe the statements they tell you because they're untrue. I know. I've lived through it. And we want a union at Aberdeen, and we're depending on y'all. Give us a victory.
Thank you, Jim. Well, as I said, I made my speeches inside the plant at the Fab in Roanoke 2, starting about 1 o'clock on Friday night. And I've got to make another round. So I'm going to try to make my 30-minute speech that I made to you inside the plant in about 5 or 6 minutes. But I do have some things I want to talk to you about. 11 years ago, they brought me out of a steel mill in Atlanta, Georgia, Andy, and they put me to work on J.P. Stevens. I didn't mind that because I knew a little something about the textile industry. My mother-in-law and my father-in-law worked in textile mills. So I said if I can help the textile workers achieve some of the benefits and the wages and the conditions that we achieved in the steel industry, then I wanted to be a part of it. So I've been after them for 11 years. And I made up in my mind at that time that I was going to stay after them until they abided by the law. Now, for the first time, after 12 Circuit Court decisions, 3 of them that went to the U.S. Supreme Court, brothers and sisters, you've got them more afraid of you than you are of them, and they're running scared. Yes, the company says nobody can make them do anything that they don't think is reasonable and practical and they don't want to do. Well, I don't think they thought it was reasonable and practical for them to pay out $1.3 million to 289 workers. I don't think they thought it was reasonable and practical for them to pay out Ms. Doris Bowers $32,000 last spring. And I don't think they thought it was reasonable and practical for me to walk into their plants last Friday. And I don't think you're going to think it's reasonable and practical next Wednesday when you beat them over 2-1 by yes. Now, as I said, I was going to try to get a 30-minute speech in 5 minutes. Now, you know why I'm here. We posted notices on your bulletin board for over a year. And many of you wrote to me begging me to come to send somebody to Roanoke Rapids to help you because of the way the company was treating you. You remember what happened in 1965 when they loved you on the one hand and they scared you on the other hand. In 1959 when you were kings and queens till the election. So you asked for help, and believe you me, brothers and sisters, we give you that help. After 11 years of dealing with your company and this high-priced lawyer down here in Charlotte, North Carolina, we finally learned how to beat him. And you're going to win next Wednesday, I'm confident of that. Now, what's going to happen tomorrow? They're going to gather everybody up and force you to attend a meeting. They're going to tell you after you get out there that you don't have to stay there, but your boss is going to be scattered all out in the audience, and he's going to be looking around. But ask them to explain to you how they can cut your profit sharing by $400, as much as $400 when their profits went up 430%. And ask them how at the same time they can increase the salaried employees' pension plan to whereby a foreman gets $325 a month for the rest of his life. I don't believe they can explain that to you. You know, they take it out of one pot and they increase the other pot. And I say to you that you're just as good as those people that's out there in the office shuffling papers around. If these girls in the office are entitled to decent insurance, shuffling papers around, then you're entitled to it. If your supervisors are entitled to better benefits, and that's the whole problem. They say it's your money that we're after. That's not what they're worried about. They're afraid that you're going to get some of the money that they've been putting in their hip pocket for over 100 years. Now, I'd rather have shared this platform with Mr. Hartsell. I got a letter right here talking about the meeting they're going to have tomorrow, talking about the arrangement. But there's going to be a union representative to come back in that plant tomorrow after they make the speeches. But what are they going to tell you? They're going to tell you the union can fine you for working too hard or working overtime. They're going to tell you about some poor little lady that got fined one time for going to church instead of a union meeting in order to try to put the fear of God into you. Well, all of you got the letter that I sent out, and none of them has stepped forward yet to try to collect it. And let me just remind you, it's got my name right here. Under the law, an employee at J.P. Stevens who votes for the union cannot be made to pay union dues. We don't ask you to pay union dues until you get better wages, better benefits, and a better way of life. Under the law, the employees at J.P. Stevens can vote for the union and never have a strike against their will. Under the law, it is strictly illegal for the company to threaten to close the plant down or to reduce wages and benefits or to otherwise punish employees for voting for the union. And my daddy told me a long time ago, says Harold, if it ever comes to the question of credibility, who's telling the truth and who's not, put your money where your mouth is. And I offered $1,000 to anybody to disprove that. Here it is. Nobody's offered to collect it yet, Mr. Hartzell and nobody else. And that thing still stands. Remind yourself tomorrow when they tell you they're going to call you out on strike. There's 15 or 16 people get together at a union meeting. They decide that you're going to have a strike. That's the way it's going to work. Then everybody has to strike. They're going to insult your intelligence. How in the world can 15 or 16 people decide what over 3,400 people are going to do? So remind yourself of that when you get in there tomorrow. So I don't want to belabor the meeting. As I said, I'm going to have an opportunity to talk to some of you. Maybe they'll accept our challenge. They're not here today. So maybe we'll have union representatives inside your plant tomorrow when they make your speeches to you. Maybe they got guts enough to stand up and face us. And I say to you, free and honest men are not afraid to face the opposition when there's a question of who's telling the truth and who's not. And if they want you to know the truth, they'll do that. And they'll answer your questions. See if they answer your question tomorrow. I offered to answer questions in that other day. See if they will. So in closing, let me say this, brothers and sisters. I'll answer any question anybody has here today. But make up your mind that you can have a better way of life. I'd like to see you enjoying $6 an hour like we enjoy in the steel industry. I'd like to see you get up to $159 a week when you're out sick like we do in the steel industry. I'd like to see you get $100 a week if you should be laid off, plus what the state unemployment pays you like we do in the steel industry. And yes, brothers and sisters, I'd like to see you have a decent retirement plan like my father has when you get too old to work and too young to die. Let me just make one announcement. We're going to have a committee meeting around 7 o'clock at the Union Hall. And if there's anybody got any question, we'd be glad to answer them out on the football field or here or wait here. If anybody here got any questions, anything on your mind? Well, what time is it? I can't hear that now. What time is it? What time is it going to be next Wednesday? Yes, ma'am. We got them reeling and a-rocking. They don't know what to do. They're having secret meetings over here at the Recreation Center. They're having secret meetings down at Rocky Mount. They're having secret meetings down here in Gaston, North Carolina. You know, the foreman can't be held responsible for what some apple polisher says. So we got people running all over town, people that want a boss's job by working against you. They saying that the plant's going to be closed down. They saying that we shot in the store over there. All kind of rumors. You're going to hear everything in the world. So let me close by saying I'll see you in the plant, in the fab tomorrow, and I'll see you people in Roanoke too, and Yarndie tomorrow. And I hope that some of the other representatives can see you in whatever plant that you came out of, and the company will have guts enough to accept the challenge to debate. And one of these days, brothers and sisters, my dream's going to come true. The steel workers the textile workers going to receive the same wages and benefits that the steel workers receive one of these days. So in closing, I'd like to introduce to you, without a long introduction, Reverend Findlater, and when he finishes, closes our meeting here with prayer. We're going to adjourn and go out on the football field. We're going to eat barbecue. We're going to sing songs. And I want you to talk to your fellow workers from Aberdeen and Statesboro, Georgia while you're out there. So, Reverend Findlater, if you would, dismiss the meeting. Thank you, brothers.
Very good. Brothers and sisters, I want to pay you a tribute. I know you will carry an election. People who can come like this and endure, as William Faulkner would put it, just endure because your hearts are in it. I congratulate you. And I am honored as a minister, along with Mr. Young and the gentleman who pronounced the invocation, another minister, to be here for the church, to give what sanction we can to you. I hope that our jobs as pastors will still be waiting for us when we get back home. When I think of what Mr. Corner said a while ago, just a few years ago, a black citizen of North Carolina offered for governor. In his platform, he said, the first thing I will do if you elect me is to take every textile mill in North Carolina and dump it in the Atlantic Ocean. That troubled me because it was a pretty radical statement, but I understood it because my history has been, as a North Carolinian, that the textile mills have never been blessings to our communities. They have bled us, they have exploited us, and they have suppressed us, and they have not loved us. The only way a textile mill can be saved from this human exploitation is for you to take over and save it. The managers, the investors, are not interested in anything ultimately but the profits. You've got to save it. And I'm grateful for the note that has been sounded again and again, that people in the past have turned us against each other in order to keep us both down, black and white. And we've learned that. And we're not going to let them do that anymore. And you and I have found out that all the powers that be have been against us in the South in unionism. And I pause to pay tribute to Boyd Payton of happy memories and sad memories, who went to jail from Henderson, North Carolina, a few years ago in what looked to me so much like political entrapment. I'm honored that men like Andrew Young and this distinguished congressman from Pennsylvania who talked about going down to Washington, down here it's up to Washington, and Brother Young who talked about the pursuit of happiness, and he said that's from the Constitution. He made a wonderful mistake. It's from the Declaration of Independence, and he has made for us today a great Declaration of Independence. Now, brothers and sisters, when you deal with J.P. Stevens, you're not dealing with a man who knows you and loves you. You alone, as individuals, are dealing with a great core of powerful intellectual lawyers, investors, bankers, interlocking directorates. You are dealing with a great, massive, inhuman structure. And the only way you can deal with that is to have power over against power. And you must know that this coming Wednesday. God bless you. I lived in Weldon 30 years ago. I was pastor of the Weldon Baptist Church, 4 miles from here. At that time, Gordon Price was pastor of the Baptist Church here. Marshall Whitehurst was pastor of another Baptist church. John Walker of a Presbyterian church. I come back 30 years to see you folks. And you know, as I think of what you were making then and what you are making now, and the great increase in living, and the great gap that seems to be dividing those who have pulling farther apart from those of us who don't, I don't think you are better off after 30 years. You've got to change it yourself. And I would like to tell you that if you really try it, you'll have God on your side, because you're doing it not for yourself, but for your children and for the old people and for the health and sanity of our commonweal. With that, now, would you stand and let me have the honor of blessing our food? Is that all right?
Brothers and sisters, before we close our meeting with prayer, we've had a photographer here that's taken your picture of the audience. Is he still here? Did you get the picture? You get the picture of the crowd standing, please? I'd like for you to hold up your hand with a V for victory. Smile, brothers and sisters. Now, while you're standing, we believe in a democracy. We believe in a democratic system, a democratic way of doing things. So I'm going to ask you, we'd like to have your permission to reproduce this picture and put it out over there on Election Day if we so desire, and say, join with us, fellow workers, and vote yes today. All of those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Close it, Reverend Finley.
That's tremendous democracy. Let us together, after me, pronounce our own benediction. Will you? Let me start. The Lord bless us. The Lord keep us. The Lord cause his face to shine upon us. The Lord lift up his countenance upon us and give us peace and hope and love and plenty and equity. Amen.
All right, the barbecue's hot and ready to go. We'll adjourn and go to the football field.